Why I make the fabrics or why I do anything? Just to sort of look what those proportions look like. The segment I'm looking at that I like is this proportion. The pattern becomes more readable. Is sort of amazing. I started making the fabrics because I was looking for a new avenue with my photography. I really wanted to define my aesthetic. And at that point, I came across this way of making textiles. And that sort of led to me being able to sort of create an entire environment. So next question will be, keep this column here, but move this column into just the sort of entrance. I'd be into that. My working life had been about making environments, but mainly for other people. And so now I was making them for myself. You're looking at the tonality, you can see, okay, that's a bit too black there, that's, you know, like, it helps you sort of, you probably could pull one of those down a bit. I would just sort of fiddle around. Okay, now I'm going to my wardrobe. Okay, shall we? I've always loved fabric. My mother loved clothes, her mother loved clothes. I grew up, you know, watching women get dressed, going shopping, buying clothes. This is my childhood. Yeah, it's a bit dusty. This is Penny when we first came to New York. I feel that she's wearing a scarf that maybe I made. Hey, so these were some of my, like these little pictures, so these were some of my first like fabric painting things. I've always loved fabric and it's always been present in my work. And I think when I found this way of actually creating fabrics from my photos, it was like a sort of, it was a little bit of a dream come true situation because I was suddenly bringing a sort of three-dimensionality to the two-dimensional photograph. And I'd often found the two-dimensional photograph frustrating in that way, that I wanted to touch it. So I think there's this and then bigger again. I think, so because I think there is the two possibilities. I'm going to get another fabric where the scale was very small, but I've realized that the scale needs to be larger. Well, believe it or not, I spent 4 days photographing this. I spent 4 days making it and photographing it, and I probably took 2,500 pictures of it. I mean, to make the fabrics, I start with a photograph. Then I develop those photos into a sort of repeat pattern. So by the time you get there, it's hard to know what it was in the first place.
Amazing. They almost look like oil paintings.
Right.
Yeah.
They're little bandanas.
They are?
So, yeah, that's, yeah.
Oh, I love
Yeah.
that.
You can tie them in your hair.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. You know, and I always like work with a very painterly image to start off with. And that is in itself an interesting process because you're not reproducing every color that's in the photograph. It translates the color into a much more minimalistic palette. And so it took a long time for me to learn or to understand how color translates into the weave. I was experimenting with some photos. I printed them on canvas and I was splattering the canvases with paint. Yeah, so I took images from like porn magazine, from gay porn, and soaked them in dye, in bleach. I splattered paint on them. I did sort of various things to sort of abstract them. It wasn't a very successful process, actually. I was just wrecking the photos, basically. But one day I looked at the floor, and I'd splattered paint all over the floor, and it looked amazing. Look, see, this looks good, doesn't it? This is great. I love this. Then I had these large canvases made, and then I started splattering paint on them. And that is what you saw in the hall. This is the hallway of the unwanted. But so these are giant versions of those pictures. We don't normally let people into this hall. It's not glamorous. I had it printed on canvas and then I splattered paint all over it, as you can see. So I started photographing the floor, then I started adding bits of butterflies and bits of this and bits of that, and that became a series of pictures that then 5 years later were the basis for the fabrics that became known as the accidental expressionist. These were the fabrics that Emily Johnson saw from 1882, and she'd seen them on Instagram, she really liked them, and she said, will you design some ceramics for me? But I didn't know exactly what I was going to do. We're going to have the groovy black cups. And I really particularly love it when I have a tea tray because, well, I always have a tea tray. I never actually have tea without having a tea tray. When Emily came to visit, she came to New York and I made her tea, as I generally do. And I was saying, I don't really know what to do and like, what shall I do? And like, I could do this and that and blah, blah, blah. And she looked at my tea set and she went, well, why didn't you do something like that? She said that would be, you know, use that as an inspiration. And so that was the inspiration. And then we sort of worked from there. It's me.
Miss me?
We thought we'd come visit you.
Oh, sorry.
Hi.
Hi.
Yeah. Because we thought you might like be opening the tea sets or something.
Yes.
And
so I'm thinking of turning that table into like
Martyn table.
Yeah, so I'll take those books out.
This is Raph and John's shop. And John cuts hair here. And Raph makes these amazing clothes. Raph just used some of my fabrics in his, what will be his next collection for spring, summer. Things like this, like for instance, a bag made in MTS Dapple by Raph Swider. So maybe I could help to unwrap the pots.
Perfect.
Yeah. Because part of the process for me of the accidental expressionist was accidental, I wanted to keep this idea that of chance in the collection, in the design. You know, each one is made is hand glazed, so every single piece of this is different. So you're always buying like a unique item. Bye. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you.
It was my first time of taking an idea that I had used, like for instance the splattered fabric, and you know, translating that three-dimensionally. have a, you know, I just have an urge to create things. I love making things. I guess I like, you know, my mind is happy when it's busy. It's happy when it's organizing and reorganizing and thinking and planning and seeing things and being a sort of, you know, basically a visual artist is all about sort of mentally organizing space all the time and organizing shapes and colors, and I just like that, and I can't imagine not doing it. It's sort of how I see things. It's an urge. My hope for the fabrics is ultimately that I create a language of design that I can keep using, you know, across a sort of various design medium, and to partner with other people, and I bring the strengths that I have. Well, I feel I'm at a point, like, you know, where I'm sort of transitioning between sort of what has been a life in the city to really acquired a life outside of the city. And at the moment, you know, I'm very much sort of in between, going between. It feels to me like I'll end up spending more time out of the city. Like, I think the city is a great space when you're young and super ambitious and are excited by seeing things for the first time. I'm much more excited by seeing, you know, a tree grow, because that, you know, this is a first time for me. I think I'm always seeking new experience, and for me, there's a lot more new experience outside of the city than there is in the city. I see my life becoming more and more engaged with nature. My foot is totally gone to sleep. It's hilarious.
Oh my God. Okay.
This will be the opening sequence. Great.